Hi, welcome to another episode of The Young and the Restless. We open up at Devon's, and Abby and Devon talk about their son and Devon going back to work at Chancellor Winters. Be aware that I will skip most of Abby and Devon because they're so boring. Then we go over to Newman and we see that Vic and Nate are in the office making plans and developing strategies to destroy McCall and make it weak. And then we see Nick comes and he demands to speak with Vic. Then we see Audra runs into Tucker at the park and they talk about him still being in town, and Audra believes that Ashley is the one keeping him there. Audra also takes a dig at Ashley for being with Tucker, and Tucker calls her out for being jealous over Ashley. Then we go over at Society, and Billy and Jack are there and they're having a business meeting. But while he's talking to Jack, Jack's mind is completely not there. He's talking to himself. And Jack tells Billy that he is hopeful that he can clear Diane's name, and that's what's on his mind. Billy tells him that he needs to get his head back in the game because Ashley might be planning a coup. Then I skip Abby and Devon, but while doing that, Devon goes to leave for work, and then he sees the boxes in front of Nate and Alana's apartment, and he wonders if both of them are moving. Then we go back to Newman, and Nate leaves, and Nick says that he wants to talk about the budget issues, but Victoria isn't convinced that's the reason why Nick really wants to talk. She asks him if Nick is coming to give her a lecture and be judgmental. And she calls out Nick for going to Victor, running to tell him about her and Nate's relationship. And then she clearly tells Nick that he's a hypocrite because it was fine for him and Sally to be engaged in office relationship, but it's a problem with him and Nate. And Nick says that Nate is gunning for his job. That's why he is scared, unlike Sally. Back at the park, Tucker tells Audra that he moved into the Abbott house with Ashley. And then we see Audra is struck by this, and Tucker calls her out on her quest to get Nate, and Audra says that Nate is the type of partner she wants in a guy right now, unlike Tucker, who has lost everything. Back at Society, Jack says that he can't believe it, and Billy doesn't know if it's really going on yet, but says that Ashley is concerned about Diane's influence on Jack and the company. And Billy says that she hasn't done anything yet, so no need to be alarmed. Jack asks if he agrees with what Ashley said and that he should step down. Then we go back to the park, and Tucker warns Audra not to get in Nate's way because Nate is ruthless and he will kick her to the curb. Then we see Devon comes to the coffee house and he sees Alana alone drinking. He goes over to ask about the boxes at the door, and Devon asks what did he do because he thinks Nate did something, and Alana tells him Nate was sleeping with Victoria. Then we go back to the Newman, and Nick is concerned that Nate is trying to take his job, similarly like what he did at Chancellor Winters to Devon. And I'm like, Nick, you sound weak. You're Newman. Why are you concerned about Nate climbing up the ranks? There's nowhere they will pick Nate over you, Nick. Your character has gotten so weak and annoying. I can't be bothered with Nick sometimes. Then we see Vic ask for proof that Nate is trying to take his job, and Nick says that his track record is the proof. Nick is hurt at the fact that Victor and Nate are always in the office planning and having meetings together. And he's concerned that Nate is opening up himself to know all the divisions of Newman. Nick says that Vic is blinded and does not see the red flags on Nate. And Victoria defends Nate and says that he is not Ashlyn. Then we see Devon says that he is shocked, and Alana says that she is okay. She thought he would go back to being the man she loved, and Alana regrets the time she wasted on Nate. She puts the blame on Vic several times, telling him, Devon, that it was Victoria who pushed herself onto Nate. But Devon tells her that she deserves better than Nate. She says Nate is swimming with the sharks now, and he better be careful. Then we go back. Then we see Nick arrives at the coffee house. He sees them. Then he sees Sharon and questions what's wrong. Sharon asks him what's wrong, and Nick claims that he doesn't want to talk about it. And they discuss the baby and Fate coming back to town. Then Nick questions why is Sharon selling champagne now. Back at the part, Ardra comes into we see Ardra comes to Alana and complains about Nate at the coffee house, and Alana tells her to put the worry about Nate aside. She's done worrying about him. Alana doesn't want to be butthurt about them, but Ardra is pushing her to get revenge. Then we see Nate walks into the park, and then he runs into Devon sitting there alone. And Nate thanks Devon for inviting him to Neil's celebration. Then Devon gets hypocritical. Here we go. Devon calls out Nate for ruining the best and last thing that he had left in his life. Really? So Nate kindly reminds him that he has no right to lecture him after he done cheated on Amanda. He calls it the glass house that Devon lives in is always trying to bring someone down. And Nate is right. But Devon says that neither one of us can judge each other, but yet Devon continues to go on and judge. He tells Nate that Nate has lost his way. And Nate says that you ain't doing much better either, so you have no right to judge. And this is my problem with Devon right here. Everything that he goes after Nate for and says Nate does, he does the same exact thing. But as Nate says, he's living in a glass house. He's judgmental of everyone else but himself. And Devon needs to stop it. And as I said, Nate reminds Devon that he has done the same things that he has done. So he has no right to judge. Back at society, Billy assures Jack that he is behind him 100%. However, he believes Ashley is genuinely worried about him, and Jack calls Ashley irrational when it comes to Diane. Billy shows Jack how his situation with Diane looks bad to the business world, and Jack says that it does look strange. Jack says don't worry, and he gets up and leaves. Then we see Audra is forcing Alana to get revenge, and then he tells Alana that she needs to go confront Vic. Alana gets up and runs off to Newman. Back at the park, Nick defends himself and says that he has always been the same man. Unlike Devon, who is always been selfish and makes everything about him, and Devon takes no blame for what he did to Nate and walks off, and Nate tells him that he never really knew who he was. Back at the coffee house, Sharon tells Nick that she got it anonymously, and they go over the cryptic note and they see blood on the bottle. Then we see Nate goes back to Newman at Vic's office, and she is happy to see him. And Nate asks what's going on with Nick, and Vic tells him that Nick is worried that Nate is trying to steal his job. And Nate says that it is in his head to rise up through Newman over the course of the years, but he's not trying to steal Nick's job at the moment. Then we see Alana knocks, and Vic says, "Come in." Back at the coffee house, Nick and Sharon continue to discuss the mystery behind the champagne, and Nick tells her not to drink it. It's weird. Then we see Abby and Billy run into each other at society, and they discuss the family drama going on at the Abbott house. Then we see Jack comes home at the Abbott house, and he sees Tucker. Then he yells upstairs and said, "Ashley, get down here now." And he goes over and asks Tucker, "Where is Ashley?" Then we see Nate offers to bring Alana somewhere else to talk, but Vic tells her to let her get whatever she has on her mind off. And Alana goes on to call them out for being careless. and calls them unprofessional and says everyone in the office will find out. And Nate says that it's enough. Alana tells them that she is quitting the podcast and she wants to go free. Alana then goes off to being judgmental. She and Devon has this issue and criticizes Nate's current job and said that it's nothing like medicine. In the corporate world, they actually aren't doing anything, unlike her in the world of medicine. And she calls them both pathetic and leaves. And then Tucker calls out Jack and says that his behavior in the house is like living at a truck stop. Tucker says that if he would know where Ashley is, he wouldn't tell Jack. Tucker then warns Jack not to hurt Ashley and tells him to back off and not make him his enemy. Then we end with Nate warning Sharon about the bottle, and we see Sharon dump the bottle in the garbage pan. Thanks for watching. Bye.